All units are responding. Multiple callers. This is a fourplex. Flames from the back location.
My name is Kim Elizabeth Manning. I'm a disaster public affairs volunteer with the American Red Cross. I lived down the street from the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia at the time, and was at work and saw on the news that the Twin Towers had been hit. And we were all stunned. And our boss let us go that day and said, go home and take care of yourselves. And I went home. I lived in Arlington. Went home and told my roommate, let's go help the Red Cross. I had spent 6 years of my life dedicated to the Red Cross, doing disaster relief, health and safety, donating blood, all the things that Red Cross does for our community. And I told her, let's go. And we went down, registered as spontaneous volunteers for the day, and we were tasked with handing out water and sunscreen and hugs to all the people that were on the ground. Most of the people that we served were military personnel and emergency personnel, making sure that they stay hydrated. We literally carried cases of water and said, here, have some water. My perception was it wasn't a crime scene yet. Maybe I didn't want to believe that it was a crime scene. I was walking along and I looked behind me and there was the FBI all lined up doing their sweep, and then I decided it's time to go somewhere else and find where else I could be helpful. First of all, you don't think disasters are going to happen in your backyard. For the person whose home is burned out, that is the hugest disaster. That is their Hurricane Sandy. That is their Boston Marathon. That is their 9/11. That is the disaster for them. And the Red Cross will come, assess what the situation is. Often they will need shelter for a few nights. They'll need a couple of vouchers to buy at least a couple changes of clothing. We'll feed them right there. We'll at least give them some money to go get some meals for the next couple days until they figure out where they're going. And then they can come back in to Red Cross and talk to us more about what are your disaster cause needs. A lot of times we'll provide a person who can talk to them about what's going on, about their experience. A mental health person, a counselor, who's there to provide some comfort. Yeah. Each of our workers is trained to at least be able to provide some basic comfort and hope. After a flood or a hurricane or a tornado, an earthquake, they sort of look like a war zone. I've not been in a war, so I don't really know, but we've all watched television. Things are a mess. Things are flipped over. There are, depending where you are, there are boats or trailers. There are trees stuck in strange places. There are church steeples that are wedged in trees. There's mud or sand or smoky air or just filth and sewage. I mean, it's everywhere. We conduct something called damage assessment, where our workers, which could be volunteers or staff people, go out and look at all of the homes and make an assessment of how much damage. If you had a foot of water in your home, or if you've had 7 feet of water, it's really damaged. But there's still different levels of damage. Is your home still livable? You know, can you live in your home even though there's damage? Can you not live in your home because there's so much damage? Or can you not live in your home because it's gone? And many times in a wildfire, it's gone. There's nothing left. And that is so sad. We take our mobile feeding trucks. We call them emergency response vehicles, but they're all really a mobile feeding truck. We take it to wherever the disaster is. Salem, Oregon has one, and it takes it on the road, drives all the way across the country, or in this, sometimes just down the road. And then we hook up with the Southern Baptist Convention. And those are the folks who prepare all of our food, load it into our containers, we put it back on the truck, and then drive the streets looking for folks who are hungry. They're cleaning out their homes, they're cleaning up their yards, and they're hungry. They want some snacks, they want some water. Maybe their water system's been damaged. We offer them water. If we see a dog out there, we'll offer the dog a drink of water too. We do two things. We inform the people who've been affected by disaster how and where to get help. But our other job is, as a communicator, for the people who've been unaffected, we tell them how they can give help. And the only way, one of the ways to do that is to show them pictures. In this case, I ran into two little boys who were just the cutest little kids and offered them water and said, let's go to the truck and get some water. And we had a couple of little toys and said, here's a little toy for you. And they just took the toys and they took the water, and they were thirsty. Their mother was appreciative. They're just very strong people. Most disaster victims are much stronger than you think they are, than they think they are. And we do our best to stay strong for them. Doesn't mean we don't shed a few tears. I cry a lot on disaster, actually. And I do my best to set it aside when I'm face to face. And sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. And I think that's okay. I personally think it's okay to cry with a client. I lost it at one point. There was a man, I stood in front of him and his little girl, and I just lost it. And I thought, well, that's not very professional. And he was a little startled that I lost it. But then I just said, you know, I just feel really bad for you guys. They were living in the shelter. And that's a whole nother concept, to live in a shelter. You know, you already can't live in your home, and now you're moved to a shelter. And sometimes the shelters have 50 people. Sometimes they have 350. I think in Katrina they had thousands in one building. And it's just beds, lined up. Families try to stay together. Sometimes they'll put the men on one side and the women on the other and the families in the middle. And it's noisy, the lights are bright. I cannot imagine what it's really like to live in a shelter as a client. When I run into somebody who's deaf, I can communicate with them enough to help them feel a little bit more comfortable. And that's the whole reason I took it, so that I could communicate with somebody, you know, do you need help? You know, how can I help you? Do you need food? Are you thirsty? Do you want some water? And they don't feel so alone. In the summer of 2012, I was called to be the communicator for the Taylor Bridge Fire, which was somewhere between Cle Elum and Ellensburg, Washington. And it was burning at about 25,000-ish acres and just destroying homes. The path was just sweeping through and taking homes. And my job was to go up and help communicate where folks could find shelter, how they could access Red Cross services. So one day I followed the folks that conduct the damage assessment I got in my car behind them and we just drove through neighborhoods looking to see what kind of condition the homes were in. And it just was, I can't even call it a war zone because there was nothing there. They were just flattened. House after house after house was flattened. And then you'd get to a part and you'd go, wait a minute, this house is totally standing. No damage, nothing. And that's the nature of wildfire. It'll blow through a path and then these guys are fine. I arrived about 2 days after the hurricane hit. And in some of the communities that I went through, it was sand everywhere. Buildings were half knocked down. Some of the people had already started to clean out their homes. So all their furniture, all their clothes, all their appliances, everything's just out in the yard. I personally did not see any rescue attempts, but you know what a rescue attempt is? When somebody is just kind of losing it because they've lost everything and they're in tears and they've just had it up to here with cleaning out, and you go over and say, would you like a cup of coffee? Do you want to talk about it? That's a rescue. Yeah, we can be there when we need it. And in spite of it all, we can all find moments of sheer belly laughs, just belly laughs. I recently came back from a flood in Texas, and we were talking to the family, and all their stuff's out in the front yard, and she said, this used to be here and that used to be there. And I said, what's the pig here? She said, oh, that pig is the decoration we had in the back of our house, but it landed up on the fence and it was clinging to the fence. So I said, let's take a picture. She brought the pig back out, put it on the fence, and we took a picture. But this, you know, we often have great moments of connecting human to human, and they often bring the moment to us. You know, the hugs we give and the hugs we get, we're all better for it all. When I was in New Jersey, we were out in Atlantic City distributing brooms and mops and cleanup kits and diapers and baby food and all the things that people needed, but we did it in what we call bulk distribution or community outreach distribution. Here are some things available, come get them, and so you can go on and clean up your home. And I ran into a couple folks from Canada, and I thought, what are you guys doing here? And they said, well, we came down to help. Oh, well, that makes sense. We are all one Red Cross. And I got to see sort of how that one Red Cross, they stepped in, did what we needed them to do. They probably provided some guidance on, you know, this is a way to do it. And we worked together to create what's the best way to help these people. And we worked together. We haven't had something of this size, and the whole country hasn't had something of this size. They said, can you guys come up and help us? So they put a call out and said, we need 4 communications folks who can go to Canada pretty quickly. I happened to be one of those 4 that raised my hand and said, I'll go to Canada. And I actually partly raised my hand because of the flood. But my dad was born in Canada, and I did it in honor of, or in memory of him. It was a good experience. They learned a lot from us, we learned a lot from them. And then we did some stories about how the American Red Cross and the Canadian Cross have teamed up to work together because we are all one Red Cross. As a volunteer, what I find is people want to get involved when the Red Cross, when the disaster happens, and that's great. The best time to get involved with the Red Cross is before the disaster happens. You know, get your own 3-7-day kit of water, food, blankets, clothes, emergency information, banking information, all the important stuff. Know where that is, make a kit, flashlights. Have your kit ready. Because when the disaster strikes, you can at least begin to help yourself. Take basic first aid, take CPR. You're the first line of folks to help when there's a disaster. Let the firemen and the police handle the cases that are bigger than the average person can handle. But you can help your neighbor if they're cut. You can probably help your neighbor if they break their leg. At least get them stabilized enough till the medics can get there and take them. Get trained. Take first aid and CPR. Donate blood if you can. That's how you can help the Red Cross before the disaster happens. And then once the disaster happens, then you're ready to go. You can actually be deployed, whether it be to a home fire here in the area, whether it be to a hurricane, tornado, earthquake, wildfire, anywhere else in the country. But get trained and join us.